So welcome at January 11th at 11:11 a.m. to our session on 11 things you should know about assessment. These were created by our department assessment coordinators and members of our assessment leadership team. This slide deck also has a number of resources for you that we can share as well. We really appreciate you taking a little bit of time on a busy day today to stop by and chat about assessment, which of course we love dearly here in CART and DAX and assessment leadership. So let's jump right in. We're going to be counting up to our 11 things. Our first thing that you should know about assessment is we have a Plan, Do, Study, Act framework, and there are 4 steps in this design. So you identify your learning outcome in the planning stage, you provide your assessment instruction in the do stage, you analyze the data and determine what types of interventions might support student learning in your study phase, and then you act on that intervention or that change, and you reassess in your act stage. Throughout the whole process, you will be reflecting on what's happening, and hopefully you'll be sharing and in conversation with key stakeholders, which may vary across different steps who those key stakeholders are, but they could be colleagues, they could be administrators, and they certainly at times should be students. The resources here in this slide are going to link you to our Tuesday Tidbit series on the Plan, Do, Study, Act. We have come out with our overview and our Plan, Do, Study, and Act items. Oh, sorry, not Act yet. Act and Reflect and Share will be coming out in Tuesday Tidbits this coming semester.
One thing that's interesting about the Plan, Do, Study Act is the time frame is customizable for your particular needs. So there may be some assessments that are completing all of these steps within one semester, whereas for other courses, especially those that are only offered once a year or don't make as often as we would like them to make, this might be a year after year process because we only have so many opportunities to engage. So this is really customizable. Even though each of these steps is set, you get to pick the time frame that's going to meet the needs you have.
Right. Thank you very much, Roxanne. I think that is a critically important point. As you know from our course assessment cycle, we have a 3-year cycle, but that 3-year cycle is somewhere within those 3 years, you go through these steps. And whether you do that all in a single semester, whether you do that over the course of 3 years, depends on your needs. So let's move to number 2. So let's say you say, I'm not really sure how to do that, or what the right time frame for me is, or what steps in the process, maybe you're struggling at a particular step in the process. Help is available. So we have, as hopefully you know, our assessment developers. We have a team of faculty experts who have expertise actually in different areas of assessment, but very complementary areas that are here to support you with the Plan, Do, Study, Act process or any other assessment needs. They also provide training, conversation. This can be formal, this can be informal. I've linked here in the notes to our assessment developers page on Gaucho and the form you can fill out to request support. And I will throw this now to Roxanne, who served as an assessment developer, for what additional things she would like to add.
As a former assessment developer, this is just such a fun role because it allows us to engage with you, our faculty and our staff, and learn about what you're doing. And while we can serve as assessment experts and help you in that term, we're also serving as students because we don't have the same expertise. We're not from your discipline most of the time. So we're learning just as students. So you get a really unique opportunity to kind of test us and to try out a particular assessment on someone who's taking that student perspective, but then who can also turn around and give you an assessment perspective. So I love it. And I can speak on behalf of all of our developers that they really love it as well. So reaching out to us and asking for help, that's what the developers are here for. That's the whole point of the job. So please reach out if you have a question. It's not a burden. Yeah, we'd love to have it. So on behalf of Michelle, Brandon, Karen, and Pam, definitely contact us and we are happy to help.
And if you know someone who you think would be a great developer, or you think you would be a great developer, we will be hiring a new developer position this spring because Brandon will be stepping into a more full-time role within general education work. All right. And number three. Number three is we are in year three. We previewed this just a little bit already when we mentioned the course assessment cycle is a 3-year cycle. So within our 3-year cycle of course assessment, all courses should complete at least the study phase. And the reason I say that is at some point you should complete all 4 steps in the process: plan, do, study, and act. But some courses, for example, like Psych 101 is starting our assessment this year. So we will make it through the study phase and we will complete it next year, even though we're moving into the next cycle, because within our department, we have it so that, again, we're all on a 3-year cycle, but that 3-year cycle just identifies when we're starting the process, not necessarily when we are finishing that process. Now, in some of your departments, it may be structured so that everybody finishes within that set 3 years. It's really up to you and your department assessment coordinator to determine what's best for your time frame. Roxanne, anything else about this one?
I'm also our department assessment coordinator. So the message that I just sent to my department is reflect on the courses that you normally teach, and thinking back over these last 3 years, since we are in that last semester of the last year, have you assessed that course that you taught 2 years ago? Making sure that you are helping out with your department assessment coordinator. And again, especially those courses that maybe don't always make, we want to make sure that we're assessing them when they do make. So reflect back, and you can be proactive. Reach out to your department assessment coordinator and make sure that you've completed what you need. You may have started something. Maybe you did the study and you implemented the assessment in your course last spring, but did you close that loop? Did you come back and study and act on that and tell us what you learned and tell us what you're going to do with that data? So I would recommend just a little bit of reflection on this step and making sure that you have completed it, and your DAX will appreciate that effort.
And you might have noticed the language on the slide says barring special exceptions. So let's say you are teaching a course and you have started the process, and then you are no longer to be teaching that course. It's going to be taught by another faculty member, something changes, or your department assessment coordinator can help you then with kind of how to handle language if for some reason there's a special circumstance under which a course would not be going through this type of an assessment cycle within a particular cycle. And then it would just, of course, be put on the schedule for the next cycle. All right, let's move on to number 4. So number 4 talks about dual enrollment. You may or may not teach dual enrollment. You may or may not have dual enrollment within your department or your discipline area, but dual enrollment courses need to have the same learning outcomes as all of our courses. They need to meet the same assessment criteria. And so one of the key things that we have been doing primarily within this assessment cycle as we move forward is developing our dual enrollment processes to ensure that whatever assessments occurring within our non-dual classes is also happening in a similar manner within our dual classes. And the speaker notes on this one has a little bit to do about our dual enrollment statement and linking to our accreditation reasons and some other reasons that we have this process for dual enrollment assessment. And if you are part of dual enrollment, please let us know if you need support in this area. Of course, our assessment developers can help here too. And I'm going to pass this to Roxanne, and I'm going to say, Roxanne, why did this slide confuse you a little bit when you first saw it?
I saw the dual on both sides, but I wanted to make sure what I was seeing. Like when you look in the mirror and you're not sure if what you're seeing is what you're seeing. That's what happened to me as I looked at the slide.
So,
So yes, intention. You see what she did there? Dual on both sides. Mirror.
gotta be fun, right? Assessment can be fun.
It is fun. The only thing that I can add with dual enrollment is that in departments that have dual enrollment, most of those departments have someone whose official, unofficial job is the dual enrollment coordinator. So touch base with who that person is if you think that this may affect you, or if you just like to learn a little bit more about what's happening on the other side of that mirror.
Number 5, let's talk about programs. our academic programs. So we have many, many academic programs here at GCC. We have things like the AJEC is an academic program. We have lots of CTE academic programs. We have some specialized AA programs like the AA and Fine Arts. And then we have all of our AA emphasis degrees, our guided pathways degrees. So if it goes onto a transcript, then it is a program. If it is a program, then we should be engaging in some level of program assessment. So programs like courses should be assessed to ensure that students are learning the program learning outcomes that we have set for them. Of course, those program learning outcomes are determined by our interaction with our instructional councils at the district level. And to help us do this, we should create curriculum maps where we essentially identify how we can use the course assessment process to measure program learning outcomes. So one of the things that we are working on this fall for this spring for rollout next fall will be to kind of create a more structured process for some curriculum mapping. And then for departments, particularly those that serve a lot of students, to think through how we want to design in our next cycle of course assessments that really help us answer questions about our program learning outcomes. So that's something that your department assessment coordinators will be thinking about this year and will affect you next year, primarily in the process of thinking through your course assessments and how they align to program goals. Roxanne, any updates on this one?
Absolutely. When we hear program assessment, and it sounds like another assessment task that is being thrown upon your plate, I think that it's helpful to recognize that we first already assess every single course. We're already doing that work. And if we can do that strategically, we can assess our courses and link that really seamlessly into our program assessments, because what we're doing at the course level should be supporting what's happening within our program. Additionally, we have our institutional learning outcomes, our ILOs, and we have an awesome infrastructure that's been set up to apply that ILO rubric directly into your course. So with those skills that you've already been using at the course level and at the institutional level, I think that it's going to make program a lot easier than it may seem at the start. So I think it's going to actually make your life easier, not add another thing onto your plate.
Yes, and I also think it's exciting because we often get so focused on what we're doing in our courses and we don't always take the time to think through how does our course connect to all these other places. Some departments are doing this already in more sophisticated ways. And I think those conversations get really, really exciting. Like, what do I need to do in my course to support those courses that come, before or after me, for example? All right, let's move on to number 6, something sort of similar to academic programs. General education is also an academic program, but we are putting it into a special category because there's a lot to general education. We will be creating, through the shared governance process, a general education committee here at GCC to help us with this work, to help us identify our vision, our framework for general education. What are we really trying to accomplish? That's going to go sort of hand in hand with the changes that are coming in the AJEC, although our general education philosophy is bigger than just the AJEC, just our transfer certificate of general education classes. We are going to be capitalizing upon our institutional learning outcomes as we work to assess general education. And again, to kind of Roxanne's point on the last one, does it sound like more work? That what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking our institutional learning outcome dashboard. It's currently under revision by our institutional research team so that we can begin to filter that data by general education tags. So if you are participating in institutional learning outcome assessment through Canvas, we can use that to look to see, are we meeting our general education requirements, which is very exciting. So this is also kind of new in process. You'll be hearing more about general education, maybe a little this semester, but mostly probably starting more next year as we think through this. I also like, we talked a little bit with programs, talking about the connections between courses. What I like about general education, it allows us to think about the connections of our courses outside of our academic disciplines. So how does, something with a quantitative tag or an SB tag a more literacy tag, connect across disciplines. Roxanne, what about this one?
I think you summed it up really well. No,
Well,
no
great.
comments.
All right. And this speaker notes are going to link to our institutional learning outcome dashboard and our page on institutional learning outcomes. So you can check that out if you're not familiar with that. And if you have questions, of course, assessment developers. Number 7, another thing kind of hot off the presses that we're working on here at GCC this spring is co-curricular assessment. We've been doing sort of co-curricular assessment in a lot of different spaces, but primarily here at GCC, we are used to focusing on student learning and our academic courses and programs. But as we know, students learn in lots of places. They're developing essential knowledge and skills in our co-curricular events and programs. So we are in the process of identifying, what do we really mean by that term co-curricular? What counts for GCC as a co-curricular program from the perspective of assessment? And we are going to be creating a team of co-curricular assessment champions. So CACs, kind of like our DACs, our Department Assessment Coordinators, and they are going to help us create some of the infrastructure for how we can go through an assessment process with our co-curricular activities. So I'm very excited about that. And if you participated in Fall Assessment Day, specifically the student success or the success story session, you heard from Izel and Ariel about some of the co-curricular assessment work that's happening already here at GCC.
What I will add about co-curricular are 2 things. One, this is the learning that's happening outside of the classroom, but it's still valuable learning that's contributing to helping students be more successful. So it's happening inside and outside the classroom. So even though it has a different label, it's serving the same function. And that's my second point. When we think about all of these different avenues of assessment, what's really fun and interesting for me is looking at the way that each of these is connecting the dots. So when we think about co-curricular and what students might be learning in Ariel Clifton's Money Talks about financial responsibility, how that's linking back into not only their personal lives of paying for classes and getting a job, but it's also helping them to use those skills in a critical thinking course that is one of our ILOs that's meeting the needs of a general education course that's supporting those programs. All of these dots are connecting in various ways. So assessment is really just the highlighter, helping us to show how our assessment is helping and helping us to show to ourselves, to our departments, to administration, and eventually to HLC, how the work we're doing is meeting the needs and the goals that we've set forth.
Number 8, we have fantastic resources available to you. You may know about one of them. You may know less about the other one because it is new, but I wanted to share this. We, of course, have our Gaucho assessment site, our Glendale Assessment Unites to Change Outcomes site. It is your resource for all things assessment. Feel free to just poke around and explore and bookmark pages that maybe you need to go back to more often. We also have a new library guide. So our new assessment developer faculty librarian has been actually growing a library guide that a previous librarian had started, Karen Reed. So Michelle Petrie has taken over this library guide and has created sort of a repository of a lot more scholarly resources for assessment to help with evidence-informed practice. So for example, maybe you don't want to have to create a new assessment. You want to see if an assessment exists in the literature that you can take use of. Maybe you're not sure about an intervention. You want to see what interventions are in the literature. You can connect with Michelle and she can help you do library research, or we'll do the library research actually for you and provide you with specialized resources. And this library guide also allows you to kind of go in and peruse that as well. And it's available where all of the library guides are. They're on our library page. And of course, in the notes that I will share at the end of the session, you can find a direct link to it.
So I'm going to pick on Michelle. Michelle, what awesome things can you share with us about the library guide? What do we need to know?
Well, I do want to say that it is a work in progress. It's a living document. So if you ever come across something that you think would be useful to share with our colleagues, please send it my way. And I'm happy to add it to the guide. Also, if you find any like organizational things about the guide that would be useful to you, ways that information is organized and available on there, let me know. Because I am kind of reworking how the information is kind of available on the guide at this point. But yes, it should be a good go-to kind of jumping off block for information on all things assessment. So do just reach out if you have any questions about it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michelle. We are so excited to have Michelle joining us this year in this new faculty librarian role. I felt for a while it was a gap that we needed to fill within our assessment team, and Michelle has been fantastic. And so we're looking forward to working with her for many years to come in this role, or at least as long as she'll have us. Number 9. I like this was written by Roxanne. I loved it. Tuesday tidbits are totally terrific. So hopefully you are aware that roughly every 2 weeks you get a Tuesday tidbits assessment update into your inbox. And these are quick reads. They're meant to just take a few minutes of your time. I know there are some people who sort them into a folder to go back and look at them, which is great if you go back and look at them, but we are asking that you take a few minutes each, time they come out. And it really is just a few minutes to read through it and make sure that you have, if you have any questions, you can just email back and respond to it, but that it gives you a quick way of getting some professional development around assessment. We are going to be starting this spring with sharing more stories of successful assessment through Tuesday Tidbits. So I'm very excited for that to kind of roll out. And in the speaker notes here, there is a link to the Tuesday Tidbits repository. So every Tuesday Tidbits is simply a Google document, and you can always go back and bookmark those documents if you would like to have, access after the fact to them. So Tuesday Tidbits, totally terrific. Anything else to say about that, Roxanne?
I mean, they are. I don't know how much more alliteration I can provide, but they helped me even today. I didn't have the link to this meeting saved into my calendar invitation. So I knew Tuesday Tidbits will have this. And I searched it, found it, and was able to attend this meeting. So it's just really helpful. I think it's kind of like the too long didn't read. It's the TLDR of assessment. It's giving you what you need to know in a quick bite-sized piece. So I know we get tons of emails and that it's easy to just like, yeah, assessment, but click on it, read it, and you're going to get that boost of assessment news that you need every 2 weeks.
And you may not pay attention much to the footer on those emails, but the footer includes a link to our assessment developer adapt form. That gets a help button. There's a link to our Gaucho site for the website. There's a link to our YouTube site, our GCC assessment YouTube site. And there is a link to email us if you have questions, which you wouldn't necessarily need if you were reading an email already, but they're all there for easy access. All right. Let's move along to number 10. So we like a lot of forms here in assessment. We have forms for everything, but I want to highlight 2 specific forms that you've probably been hearing about, but may not always be on your radar. As I said, that we really want to share more stories of assessment successes. We're going to start doing that through Tuesday Tidbits, but we need to hear about those stories. So we are asking anyone with any knowledge of successful assessments. They don't have to be your formal course assessments. They can be assessment you're doing sort of in any space, but it could also be your formal course assessment. We want you to report this to us. So we have a very short form called Recognizing Student Learning Improvement Projects that you can click on. You can either report an assessment you know about, and we will go search out from those people more information on it, or you can report about an assessment you're personally involved in. It just asks sort of a few questions, and we will use that information to help create Tuesday Tidbit success stories, to think about how we do future success stories videos, and just share more information, because when I hear what people are doing that are helping others, not only is it just amazing, I get this rush of excitement that I'm lucky enough to be their colleague, but I also think about how I can make those changes or utilize that information in some way in my own class. So it's very valuable. then Roxanne, you want to talk about the be grateful?
I do.
For me?
And continue, and I want to add just a little
Oh,
bit onto the report success. I think for most of us, when we see an ask like the Gaucho Awards, like nominate yourself and brag about how cool you are, a lot of us are hesitant to do that, right? I'm not going to nominate myself. Like, what type of ego do you think that I have? And similarly, if you're asked, tell us about the success of your assessment, you may have that same aversion to brag about yourself. But on the flip side, when you are asked to share your best practices with colleagues or document an activity that you're doing that helps to support student learning, just that shift in the language, just that slight shift in the ask, I think can make us see that we're contributing, not just giving ourselves a pat on the back. And that's really what we want by reporting something that you're doing, even if it's something that seems pretty minor to you or pretty routine for you. You could be inspiring another colleague to do something similar in their class or to have a little bit more confidence in the things they're already doing. So we ask that you do brag a little bit about yourself, share what you're already doing, tell us and tell others how easy it is. So these success stories, and again, what we did for Fall Assessment Day is just sharing what we're already doing to provide that documentation and to hopefully inspire others.
and
And
before we move to the be grateful, I do want to add one more thing because you inspired me, Roxanne, in saying that. Yeah, so use the term brag. You can think about it as bragging, but you can think about it just as what do you know or have done that could help a colleague? So for example, I was doing an observation of an automotive faculty member, and the way he was teaching lab was phenomenal. I'm like, this is great. Like this is, I'm thinking like, how can I incorporate some of this in my very, very different psychology research methods lab? And so I, I encouraged him to say, to let CTLE know that he could be a potential speaker. So I think it's not just, we work all the time and we try new things, and it's sharing what we've done, which we should be proud of, but it's also a way to be like, here's something that maybe I've done that I can learn from. Because when I think about how much of my class is based on things I learned from other people, if those people hadn't been willing to talk about them, I wouldn't be doing all these marvelous things in our class. So yeah, you could think about, helping others. All right, now be grateful.
now, instantly, um, we are grateful, right? And when you think about all of the assessment folks in your own department or outside of your department, you could probably generate a list on one hand right this second. So thinking about your assessment coordinator, thinking about a developer that's helped you, or just someone who you heard good things about, thinking about those champions, whether they have the official label or they're a club advisor, or they are organizing a particular student event that you know is leading to student learning, or any other assessment leader, or someone who's just supporting assessment, even if it's just within their classroom, even if it's just in a meeting, giving a little shout out. All of you who showed up at 11 on 1/11 to spend a little bit of time with us, you're supporting assessment. So we came up with a really simple process in the fall of sending out that message of gratitude. So we had our gratitude celebration, and it was so awesome to see those messages come in and to just take a few minutes to tell someone that you were grateful for what they did. And I'd love to see us continue to spread that love throughout the rest of this semester. So take a couple of minutes, fill out that form. And then one thing we're doing a little bit differently this semester is that we'll be bragging a little bit more by printing out those certificates, printing out the proof that you have appreciated someone, and then delivering it to the folks. So that's one of my projects for this semester. So we're advertising assessment a little bit more, and then also making it more meaningful for those recipients. So if that helps to motivate you to thank them, thank them.
And it's a super quick form. You put in their name, you write, a sentence or two, however much you want to write, and then it's put into a nice little page that looks like you've sent them a little letter, and there's you can sign it, you cannot sign it. And then, so quick and easy. So feel free to share that. CTLE also has an appreciation form similar to this that's more general, but I think it's always nice to hear that appreciation, and feel free to think about who you might want to send a little note to. At any point, it's always available. All right, so we are obviously on 10, which means we are one step away from number 11. And here is number 11. It is spring. So we are going to be having Spring Assessment Week. We have set the date for Spring Assessment Week. It is going to be April 22nd through 26th. It's going to be very similar to previous Spring Assessment Weeks, where we're going to ask you to maybe engage in a short task or to complete something assessment related, whatever is most meaningful to you, and then submit that information to us to help us figure out how to better support you. Now, what's going to be special about Spring Assessment Week this year is that it is going to align with 2 other events that you may have interest in attending. So we are an institutional member of AGLS, the Association for General and Liberal Studies. As an institutional member, every employee at GCC has access to the free virtual conference hosted by Purdue University Global. It is a conference all about Gen Ed, and it happens to be during Spring Assessment Week. So April 23rd through 25th, you could attend as whatever sessions within this conference that might interest you. And if you are a faculty member, you can use this. If you're a residential faculty member, you can apply for FPG for this. If you are an adjunct faculty member, unfortunately, it's not going to be eligible for FPG or for salary advancement, but you might still get something great out of it. So that's going to be happening. It's going to be free and accessible to everybody. Information will be shared on how to register for it. Also happening that week is the Arizona Transfer Summit. So this is held by the organization within Arizona that supports the transfer of students from community colleges to our universities. And the Transfer Summit is going to be on April 25th and 26th. GCC will be sending a team to that one. So that one, if you're a member of the team, you can go, or if you have some professional growth funds and you think this might be an exciting event to attend, it is here in the Valley. You might choose to use some of your travel funds, either your residential or adjunct travel funds, to attend that event. I went last year for the first time, and it was fascinating. All right, and anything else on this one, Roxanne?
No, I'm good.
Okay, so our last slide is hashtag stronger assessment. That is our goal for this year, to make our assessments stronger. We are also gearing up more in 2024. So we appreciate you coming, joining, listening. If you have questions, if you have answers, if you have anything about assessment, we would like you to share them with us. Right now, as your prize for attending, I'm going to drop into the chat the link to this fabulous presentation that has all of those speaker notes sections and links to other things. There's a couple things I realize I still need to pop in, so give me a minute after the presentation, I will add them in there. But that is our 11 things you should know about assessment here on January 11th, starting at 11/11.